Hello, everybody. This is Berklisle Sports Talk, and right now I'm here to talk about our AL Central preview, and I will talk about the White Sox, the Indians, and the Twins. I have decided, looking at teams, I've decided to skip the Royals and Tigers. Well, yes, maybe they have talent for the future. They might, especially the Tigers. I think they have a really good farm system. I think the Tigers will throw out a lot of young players this year. They could be somewhat interesting to watch this year. I just don't think they're a playoff team, and neither are the Royals, both in short seasons. Maybe the Tigers are a potential team to watch in 2021 as maybe the Indians start to decline, and maybe given the decision of Francisco Lindor, maybe as the Tigers start to rise. So that could be an interesting team. I think it'll be fun to watch the Tigers this year. I might talk about them a little bit, maybe a time this year. I don't know yet. And the Royals, I don't know. They've invested a lot in pitching. Maybe starting pitching will be how the Royals kind of get back to relevance. Maybe by 2021, 2022, something like that. But both teams have lost 100 games. The Royals have the last 2 years. The Tigers lost 98. I think they lost 98 games and they lost 117 games last year, something like that. They lost a crazy amount. They're one of the worst teams in MLB history last year. This had a disastrous year. They've picked number one 2 out of the last 3 years. I think the Tigers will still be especially bad again this year. They're one of the worst teams in league history. They're going to be bad again this year and potentially even next year. I mean, it's going to take a long time for the Tigers to climb out, or maybe they could be like the Astros, who lost 111 games in 2013. 2 years later, they're in the playoffs, and then they won the World Series 2 years after that. So who knows? Maybe the Tigers are really good, but are a good team by the early 2020s. We'll see. We'll see there. So the team that I am picking to win the Central, I go in order of where I think they finish. And the team I'm picking, I took a lot of thought. I thought the Indians and Twins were both likely candidates, but I have decided to pick the Chicago White Sox to win the AL Central. I think last year they took a big step forward. They have a they have another season now. Granted, they have only 60 games to do this, so I think there's more pressure to get off to a great start. They don't have time to get better as the season goes on. But I have the Chicago White Sox winning the AL Central in 2020, and they will make it to the playoffs this year in 2020. That has been my pick. Okay, so with the White Sox, so this is their rotation. They have Lucas Giolito, who last year is their ace. Really emerged last year. Really had his first breakout season. Kind of took a while to get going. Came up with Washington, was part of the Adam Eaton deal. Well, yeah, it would be nice to see him in Washington right now. He would have been a great number 4 starter with the Nationals. Made it to an All-Star game last year. Led the league in shutouts. And right now is now with the White Sox really took off last year. Had the best year of his career. I think he's going to build on that and will start to emerge as one of the better pitchers in the American League. You've had Dallas Keuchel, a veteran who can pitch a lot of innings. Long-time Astro, has a lot of postseason experience. The Astros was in Atlanta last year on a team. Actually signed in the middle of the year last year with the Braves on a team that won 97 games, so has postseason experience, knows what it's like to win. Gio Gonzalez, who is no longer, I think is no longer the pitcher that he was in Washington, say from 2012 to 2017, is not the same. I think but maybe I don't know how reliable Gio will be. Is not the same in 2018 or 19. I don't know how many innings you can really get out of Gio. I don't think he's no longer a workhorse caliber pitcher anymore. Maybe he can give you 5 decent innings. I don't know, but one thing about Gio is being on that team was on a lot of good teams in Washington, had playoff experience, was on a Brewers team that went to the NLCS last year and was part of the Brewers last year when they went to the playoffs as well, even though he didn't pitch in the playoffs. I don't know how much he would have anyways. But again, you have Gio Gonzalez, who I think has been in the White Sox organization at some point. Maybe I think once or twice. There's been multiple organizations before he made it to the majors. And then you have Dylan Cease, who's in his first full year as a starter, is only 24. And then you have Ronaldo Lopez, who's been up and down in his career. At times has been good. I think he had a good year in 2018. but right now it seems like a back into the rotation caliber starter, also in the Adam Eaton deal. So the rotation, Giolito is an ace. Keuchel could be really good. And then Gio, I think it's a question mark outside of that. You don't know exactly what you're getting when you kind of go to 3, 4, and 5. So if you're in the playoffs, Giolito's a great ace. Keuchel will give you innings, and then you kind of have to figure it out after that. I think the rotation could be good. I think Gio Gonzalez will bounce back this year, and I think they could have a good year. Giolito is going to be a Cy Young contender this year, and really I think what impresses me the most about the team is the offense. Since if they can pitch well for 3 out of 5 games and they have a good offense, which is saying they've added Yasmani Grandal in free agency, will be their starting catcher. Again, Grandal has 25 to 30 home run power as a catcher. Has shown that in LA. Obviously, you have back Jose Abreu, 30 home run hitter last 6 seasons, 33 home runs, 123 RBIs last year. Abreu's been on a lot of mediocre and bad teams in Chicago now. I think finally gets an opportunity to play for a winner. You have Yohan Moncada who finally broke out. But here's another thing to talk about is getting over COVID-19. So again, when you have COVID-19, I think what I've heard is it can take a lot of energy out of you for a while. So again, may not be in his best playing shape. Yes, he hit 315, 25 home runs, 81 RBIs, had a breakout year last year. I think if you gave him a full season, healthy season in normal times, could be an MVP candidate. Moncada is an all-star caliber player. A lot of fun to watch. And then you have Tim Anderson, who won the batting title last year, 335. Can he replicate that? Again, Eloy Jimenez at 33 home runs as a rookie. Again, Jimenez came in a trade from Chicago. This organization is really high on Eloy Jimenez. The question is, how high can he go? What is his power for the long term? And then here's another thing. You also have Luis Robert, Rookie of the Year candidate. Reading about him in Baseball America, could be a 5-tool player, could be the type of player that emerges like a Ronald Acuna, who is an MVP candidate, who could be 30-30, driving 100 runs, be a perennial all-star, win an MVP, become one of the best players in baseball. And that's what Luis Robert can be. Is only 22 right now, and this is going to be his first full year, and then has probably 5 or 6 more full years after this to build on. I guess this year will count towards service time. And then now you've added Edwin Encarnacion, who has been a reliable power hitter throughout his career in Toronto, Cleveland. Last year had a good power year. Just you've added power, you've added more offense, you've added home runs to this team, and then also here's an interesting trade. You've added Nomar Mazara in a trade from the Rangers. Has had 20 home run power, right around 20 home run power each of his 4-year careers. He's only 25. That's the scary thing. He's only 25, and this is his 5th full season in the league. Came to the league at a really young age. So if someone like Mazara comes in, maybe develops power, maybe becomes, say, a franchise cornerstone caliber player in Chicago. So again, this lineup is young. Moncada's fairly young, Anderson's fairly young, Jimenez is young, Robert is young, and then you have veterans like Jose Abreu and Encarnacion who have power. So it's finally starting to all come together, and then you go back to the rotation, having Giolito, having a top-end ace caliber starter, and then you're hoping, as I said earlier, the rest of the rotation can be good and effective. I think that may be the weakness, the rest of the rotation outside of Giolito. But if the rotation's good, the bullpen's good, again, this White Sox team, they can win 35 games. That's enough to win the division and certainly probably make it to the playoffs in a shortened season. But I like this White Sox team. They're going to win the division. So another interesting team to talk about is the Cleveland Indians. They won 93 games last year and they missed the playoffs. And the thing with the Indians, going back with them, the Indians is, ever since they won that World Series, or almost won the World Series, lost that World Series, I was just talking about the Cubs earlier, to the Cubs in 7 games. They blew a 3-1 lead and blew a 2-0 lead on the Yankees, won 102 games. kind of the peak of the Indians 2016-17. They had multiple opportunities to win a championship. I felt like in 2018 that window started to close when the Astros emerged and they ran away with the Central, but they're clearly not the same team. This last year they actually won more games than they did in 2018. They won more games, but the Twins won 101, and then you had the A's winning 97, the Rays won 95. So they ended up missing the playoffs. I think that'll be the last time a team with 93 games misses the playoffs. Certainly for a long time, and almost certainly, I would say so if eventually the league adds to their playoffs. So the Indians were not in the playoffs last year. And with this Indians team, they've lost Corey Kluber, who last year was hurt, never really got his feet wet, never really had the opportunity to really pitch a full season, become a Cy Young caliber player. That was an interesting decision to trade Corey Kluber. Francisco Lindor is still on the team. They have yet to trade Lindor. So right now the rotation is Mike Clevenger, who when he was healthy again was a 3-starter in 2018. Now is starting to become again as the 2-starter, or could be the number 1 starter this year. Is really good. Is starting to emerge as one of their better pitchers in this organization that values starting pitching. In 2016, this was more of a bullpen first team, and they almost won the World Series that way. Kind of 2017, they kind of transitioned. The last 3 years, they were starting pitching first. That is kind of the most important part of their team. You have Clevenger back as Shane Bieber, made his All-Star game last year, actually All-Star game MVP. And his first full year looks like the pitcher that could be an ace. Can pitch a lot of innings, can go deep into games. I think pitched 2-3 complete games last year, which is a league leader. Now Bieber's starting to emerge. And then you have Carrasco in some ways. And I think he's being brave for playing this year. He actually had cancer last year, which I've heard he is at a big risk. If he could test positive, he could be in great danger. Like his health could, he could get very sick and could be potentially a life-threatening illness. Carrasco is choosing to play this year. Good for him, coming back, battling cancer, is coming back this year, and how good he is, that's interesting. That'll be interesting to say. Trying to bounce back, I think, is motivated to have a great year. It was kind of been an ace caliber pitcher in years past, and you have Adam Plutko, innings eater. By the way, they also have Zach Plesac, who again emerged as a starter last year around Memorial Day, young starter. Jeffrey Rodriguez. I don't know how good Jeffrey Rodriguez is, kind of in the Yan Gomes trade at times. Looks like somebody that could be a good pitcher. Is tall, can throw hard, has a hard fastball, and throws drops in a curveball. But then again, never really quite emerged as a starting pitcher. He's just kind of fun to watch, and I hope it works out for him. So the Indians starting pitcher strength, you have Clevenger, Bieber, Carrasco, and then maybe someone like Zach Plesac emerges as well. Can kind of pick up where he left off in 2018, and you have a reliable starting pitching rotation in the playoffs. So now I want to get to Lindor now. A lot of talk of Francisco Lindor being traded. There's been talks of that basically since last year, and he has 2 years left on the contract. So, like I mentioned with Chris Bryant and Javier Baez, who kind of all came to the league around the same time, mid 2010s. With Lindor, is going to be a free agent after 2021, so only has 1 full year left on his current contract. With that being said, 1 full year left. Could he be traded after this year? Trade deadline, I don't think that's going to happen this year. And the reason why not is I feel like there won't be too many trades this year at the trade deadline. Maybe there'll be some. I don't know. I really have no idea. I don't want to get into that until it really starts to happen. But with this starting pitching rotation, I have not picked this team to win the division, but I am almost convinced that this Indians team will be a wild card team. I think they will play in the wild card game this year. It's not official yet, but I'm strongly considering that. So Lindor will stay put. But again, the direction of this Indians franchise is interesting. Since if Lindor leaves, you leave that presence, just the presence of Lindor. The position, shortstop. You lose everything about him. How many shortstops can play as good defensively as Lindor? How many shortstops have the power that Lindor has? Or really any player in baseball. That's going to be a huge presence. And this Indians team, they traded Trevor Bauer a year ago. And they felt like they netted, and that ended up. So they have made trades. They have looked like sellers at times. So having somebody, losing somebody like that, which I think with Bauer, I think he was just a headache with the organization. I think that showed he was out of here when he threw a baseball over the fence. So, again, they have lost talent before. They've gone or Bauer and Kluber. I mean, imagine if you had Clevenger, Bauer, Kluber, Carrasco, and then Bieber had those five starting pitchers. But again, Kluber may no longer be that domination anymore. Went to Texas, and Bauer may not be quite the same pitcher. I don't know. So that's decisions they made. They have subtracted, and with Lindor, I think it's going to cost a lot of money to keep, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to end up leaving Cleveland. I think that's very likely. Has hit 30 plus home runs in each of the last 3 seasons, so it's become a power hitting shortstop all of a sudden. So again, one of the best shortstops in the game, and looks like they could lose him as well. Jose Ramirez trying to. So Ramirez was MVP finals in 2017. Looked well on his way to winning in 2018. Kind of slowed down in the second half. Just looked historically great in 2018. Last year got off to a slow start, picked up, but then I remember battled injuries down the stretch. I think missed over a month last year of injuries. So Ramirez trying to get back to kind of what he was like, say, 2 years ago, that type of player. And Ramirez, if he's like that, he's MVP candidate. Can be a great player with power, speed, 30-30 caliber player. If they can get Ramirez back on track with Ramirez and Lindor playing second and short, one of the best lineup duos in baseball. And then finally, another thing I want to talk about is Franmil Rivas, who is very young, is only 24. Was actually in a three-way trade when Bauer went to the Reds, and then Yasiel Puig came over with the Reds to the Indians. Also, the Padres were involved as well, and has hit 37 home runs last year. So with Reyes, and again, he's a long-term building block there. That's what this is only his, I think he has 5 years of team control since he came to the league in 2018. So you have 5 years of team control in Cleveland, and has really 4 full years to put it together. I think they're thinking about someone to have for the long term. They might have been thinking about potentially, since they knew Bauer wasn't going to be in their plans long term, and they knew Lindor probably not. So maybe now that's a long term option. Maybe that's someone who can potentially provide power for the Indians over the next half decade. So we'll see. So again, this team is talented. I think they have a good bullpen as well. They've once again have Brad Hand, good, not great bullpen. It's never going to be what it was in 2016. But this looks like a team that will win by starting pitching, can win in both ways. And look, the White Sox, if they're not ready yet, this one team that this Indians team has is they know how to win. They've won 100 games. They've been to the World Series. Even last year when they won 93 games, when they missed the playoffs, they won 93 games. They know what it's like to win. This organization has been winning for the most part for the last 7 years. They've been to the playoffs 4 times in the last 7 years. If that's one thing they have over the White Sox, it's experience, postseason, and winning experience. And the Indians, their window to win the World Series is closing. It's much harder now. Maybe things have gotten a little easier since Garrett Cole left the Astros, but it only makes it harder now that he's on the Yankees. So we'll see. And now the Twins. So the Central Division, I think it's a division that can send 3 teams to the playoffs. It very well could. The Twins, I thought about having them win the division. I think they'll finish in 3rd place. I think they'll be a good 3rd place team. But that'll be interesting. One thing they have is a lot of starting pitching rotation depth. They don't have any, say, Max Scherzers or what I just read with the Indians or Lucas Giolito. I could go on and on. But I think they have a good starting rotation. And with the Twins, it's offense. Last year they hit 300 home runs, broke the MLB record, won 101 games. And when they got to the playoffs last year, they were clearly overmatched by the Yankees. Whatever it was, maybe the Yankees had a better bullpen than they did. I think the Yankees had that bullpen advantage. The Yankees may have had better starting pitching. They just couldn't compete with the Yankees in the playoffs. The Yankees just blew them out, and really after Game 2, I remember Groyce hit the grand slam. It was 7-0. Basically, that pretty much ended the series right there. They just weren't talented enough to beat the Yankees. And that's what we're wondering with this Twins team. They won 100 games out of nowhere last year. They hit 300 home runs. This was an historically great power hitting team. And that team that won the wild card in 2000, who got a wild card spot in 2017 and lost to the Yankees. In that wild card game, this was a different team than I think what they were. I think, yes, there were similar players. In some ways, they are different, and that has been their nemesis. You go all the way back since they've been in October. You could go back to the 2000s. You go back to 2009, 2010. Their nemesis has been the Yankees. 17. Last year was a sweep. They have lost, I think what it was, 10 consecutive games, playoff games to the Yankees in a row going back to 2009. The last three playoff appearances have been games where they lost to the Yankees. Then you got to go back to 2003 and 2004. They have just been dominant. They've been beaten by the Yankees. So that's the question. And I really think this could be a legitimate question to ask. Is now going in, if they make it to the playoffs, do they have to, whether that's through a wild card or whether that's winning the division, do they have to potentially face the Yankees again in the playoffs? But enough with the Yankees. So now with the rotation, you have Jose Barrios, good young starter. This is his fourth full year really, with the Twins. I think he's a good, reliable starting pitcher. Can go close to 200 innings and strike out 200 batters. You have Jake Odorizzi, who is really provide good rotation depth for him. Good innings eater. Can have ERA below 4. Another new member of the rotation, Kenta Maeda, who usually starts out as a starter with the Dodgers, and then as the season goes on, moves into the bullpen. So you have a reliable starting pitcher in there. Maeda has had playoff experience, has been in the winning culture with the Dodgers. Then you have Homer Bailey. I think that's a question mark. Pitched, I guess, fairly well in Oakland last year. Or I think in Oakland at times last year. I pitched somewhere else before that. I forgot where it was. I think it was Kansas City. Maybe I'm pitching Kansas City and then came into Oakland last year. Has never really been that same pitcher's battle. A lot of injuries and ineffectiveness really since his peak in 2012, 2013. It's never quite been the same. We bring in a veteran starter. And you have Devin Smeltzer, Randy Dubnyk, who again, kind of borderline starters. They could start for you. Certainly could be long relievers. You have Rich Hill. And then you have Michael Pineda coming back from suspension. So you have kind of 4 starting pitchers. By the way, Randy Dubnyk, I remember, pitched in Game 2, was kind of their starter in the playoffs last year, so maybe you can build off that and become a key member of the rotation. You have Rich Hill, a veteran presence. So one thing the Twins you could see a lot, and last year looking at their bullpen, they had a very solid bullpen as well last year. So the bullpen was good. Rotation, it's not going to be great. I think it could be good. I think you could just have a lot of different options to use. You have 8 different options, so maybe that means you use a 6-man rotation this year. Maybe that means guys you have out of the bullpen pitch multiple innings, maybe multiple times a week out of the bullpen as kind of long relievers. Maybe you do a lot of piggybacking. That's what this team could do this year. But obviously the biggest strength of the team is the power. You're talking about hitting 300 home runs. Maybe the team that hits 100 home runs. This year, Mitch Garver, your catcher, at 31 home runs last year as a catcher. Then you had, before that, I think his career high was 7. Then you have Miguel Sano at 34 home runs in only 100 games. It would be interesting to see what Sano can do a full 162. We'll have to wait till next year. So again, Eddie Rosario at 32 home runs, drove in 109 RBIs. Really everybody having a career year. Nelson Cruz at 41 home runs last year, hitting 311, 109 RBIs. Cruz is at age 40. You had Max Kepler at 36 home runs last year. So think about it, breakout years. And that's what it takes. Garver hitting 31 home runs out of nowhere. Max Kepler hitting 36 home runs out of nowhere. Eddie Rosario hitting 32 home runs. Guys who becoming power hitters that made guys who Garver never a power hitter, and Kepler and Rosario made players that hit home runs in the 20s before all of a sudden went into the 30s. And then talking about a break from power, you have Luis Arias, who was 22 at 334, 366 plate appearances, struck out less than 10% of the time. So you have kind of a contact hitter,
who can maybe get on base, who is bat leadoff, and then sets up with the potential power. Oh yeah, in comes Josh Donaldson. By the way, Sano will move to first. Josh Donaldson hit 37 home runs with the Braves last year. 37 home runs with the Braves. In comes Josh Donaldson. Is on a I think it's a 5-year, $90 million contractor, somewhere along that range. So then you have Donaldson was there long term, and then you have Jorge Polanco, 295, 34 home run, 24 home runs as a shortstop, 79 RBI. So you had a good hitting. So on top of that, despite all the power, you had a good hitting shortstop. So really all over the field, you had a lot of power hitting, home runs. Pretty much everyone in the lineup had a shot to hit home runs, and basically everybody was a power hitter. So again, the lineup I just read. So how many players last year in that lineup did 30 home runs? You have Garver, Sano, Rosario, that's 3, Cruz, 4, Kepler, 5, Donaldson, that is 6. So 6 players, including 5 returning, hit 30-plus home runs last year. Just a great line. So again, this is going to be a great lineup. They're going to hit a lot of home runs. They're going to score a lot of runs. And I think that, and again, talking about a stalled bullpen, good starting rotation, I think the team will be really good. But then again, this team was great last year. But again, they went through some stretches where they played 500. In 60 games, they're 32-28, and that's not good enough to make it the playoffs. And that's just too bad. So that's just every team. I just think about how they can miss the playoffs. I mean, so it's just gonna be a wild year this year. But if the Twins get off to that hot start like they did last year, and they win the Central, they had the best record in baseball at times last year. And that's one thing about the Twins, is they do not strike out. They were low in strikeouts. So they put the ball in play, they hit home runs. That's what makes it even harder. So I think the Twins will be a lot of fun to watch this year. I think they'll be getting a lot of home runs out of the ballpark this year. I want to monitor their starting pitching since, again, Oda Rizzi could just have a bad year. Homer Bailey's uncertain. Rich Hill's towards the end of his career. And then again, talking about having rotation depth, I think that means also, while you have depth, that could mean there's question marks, since maybe how many reliable starters do the Twins actually have? And is a lineup enough to overcome that? But again, this is going to be a great team. Again, really don't have any aces. And what last year was, does that continue? Now, are the Twins going to win 100 games every year? And are they going to hit 300 home runs every year? No, they're not going to do that. I don't think they're the type of team that can win 100 games every year. But they did that last year. So that's kind of all the Central. I kind of talked very briefly at the top about the Tigers and Royals, how they're a team on the rise. So I've not finalized anything right now, but I have the White Sox winning the Central, and I strongly believe that the Indians will be a wild card team this year in terms of the Twins. I don't know where they'll be. They could be that second wild card. They could even be a first wild card. So we will see. The White Sox, I don't quite trust them winning the division yet. I have a feeling that maybe they won't due to lack of experience playing, since they've not played in really truly meaningful games since really 2012 for a full season. And really not too many players on that team. If you want to look at the White Sox with playoff experience, I mean, yes, kind of going back, Keuchel has playoff experience, Gio Gonzalez has playoff experience, he's Mike and Grandal has a lot of playoff experience, 4 years on the Dodgers, plus 1 year in Milwaukee the last 5 years. And so does Edwin Encarnacion. Nomar Mazara has 1 year of playoff experience. So there is playoff experience on the White Sox. Obviously, some of the key younger players we're talking about, not so much. I guess Giolito was on that Nats 2016 team that went to the playoffs, but really didn't play a key role. Somebody who knows a little bit what it's like to play in the playoffs, but never really was asked to step up and do anything on that 2016 Nationals. So that's kind of the playoffs. So that's kind of where we're at right now in the division. So next up, I may try to release it on Tuesday, where I'll do the NL and AL West's divisions. I will pick the division winners, and then I will do a final preview show where I'll kind of quickly. This will be more rapid fire. I'll not do as many breakdowns. Where I'll kind of pick the playoff teams and predict what I think is going to happen in the World Series, and kind of do these predictions, awards like the MVP. I think the MVP in baseball is fairly hard to predict. I mean, yes, there's certain you kind of know who the players are, but picking the exact winner is hard. Picking the Cy Young is hard. In this shortened season, it could be anybody. It could be very hard to pick awards this year. I don't even know if I want to do that. I I just have no idea. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Opening day is 4 days away. There are more exhibitions games again today. So thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time. This is Berthoud Sports Talk.